probably heard last Sunday as we were gathering together, a man entered a church in Texas and killed over 24 people. And it makes you wonder, how do you get to that point? And people blame a lot of things. They say mental illness, or all the things that happened in their past, or what else are the things they say? Oh, remember when disgruntled employee was the reason people did that? That was a long time ago, it seemed like. Or terrorist, that's a word we like to throw around. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of everybody knowing the names of all these little small towns in America. I think that these towns would rather remain anonymous. You know, towns like Roseburg and Aurora and, Newtown. I can never remember which way you're supposed to say it. And the thing that all these perpetrators have in common, a lot of people have opinions about why they did things, and I'm not qualified to diagnose them. But what they have in common is that at some point they crossed over to the point of people not being worth having life. At some point they reached over into that they're so far other that their life doesn't matter. That's what they all have in common, right? And that is the extreme version of what we've been talking about, of exclusion. The extreme version of exclusion is saying that you don't even deserve to have life, and my pain, my anger is more important. It's hardcore stuff. And this is what's happening all around. And it's very interesting. It's like an epidemic thing, right? And so it's heartbreaking, not just for the families who are affected, and by those of us who feel that in our heart. We can imagine what it might feel like to be one of those people. But it's heartbreaking for the individuals who are perpetrating these acts of violence as well. Because they are so far away from their sense of connection to humanity and their sense of connection to God. Because if they were connected, if they really were connected to their sense of God, then they would know that they were connected to everything, and they wouldn't dare do something like that, right? So that's really sad. And so the hard part is to wonder, how have I been complicit in being part of the energy that allows these things to happen? And to sit down and look upstream and downstream from all my choices and wonder, I wonder how my effects, my causes, what the effects of my causes are. If that makes sense. What am I being part of? I don't know. I'm not saying I'm part of a mass shooting, but there's a lot of other violence happening in the world. I don't know. It's time, these are deep questions. And so when I look at these things, the question is, what might I be inspired to change about my own choices? And that is how we embrace the other. How can I look at what my actions are doing to change? And then one of the great things about having a bunch of ministers as your friends is that you get really inspiring things in your Facebook feed. It's really great. And then I'm like, hey, is that a quote from somewhere, or did you just write that? He's like, I just wrote it, though. It's mixed up from everything else, and that's true, there's nothing new under the sun. However, this is what my friend Reverend William Gill said. Compassion arises out of intimacy. In compassion, there is no separation. In compassion, there is no separation. So, as many of you know, Mary Ellen and I were on the Special Olympics bocce this summer, and as a team unified sport. And we were at practice, and the practices, are outside, so we're at the park strip, and I see a vehicle, and it has a bunch of bumper stickers that make it pretty clear that me and this person have very different opinions on pretty much everything. And there's a part of me that wants to go and get self-righteous. All of that. There's a part of me that really, and then in the next couple weeks I figure out who belongs to that vehicle. And then I've got all sorts oppressing me, my friends, and the world, gonna ruin the... Whew. Because I've never been one for really good, on the spot comeback. So, I practice in my head the clever thing I'm going to say. Not that I actually end up ever getting to say the clever thing, but I have a lot of good practice. And then my heart was softened. I realized he didn't do anything to me. He didn't do anything to oppress me. He just had bumper stickers on his car that were different than what I believed. I remember the capital T truth, which is he's got the divine spark in him, just like I do. And what I also realized was that this person who we didn't have a lot of interactions, just casual hellos kind of interactions. Our Special Olympic athletes aren't buddies or anything, so I have a lot more in common with this person than I do with a lot of other people, because we both know what it's like to have a family member with special needs. We both have been through that experience and continue to walk that experience. And here he is being a partner for bocce with his son, just like I am with my sister. We have a lot in common. Not bumper stickers, but we have a lot in common. Oops. But I figured it out. That's what's important, right? Is that I figured it out. So then I had connection and compassion for him. And then that's not to say that I probably want to go hang out and be best buds, because we still probably don't have a lot of interests that are the same. It's okay. But I don't want to go do this either. And I don't have that. Have you ever had, I usually don't, you don't know, but this, I don't do it out loud or physically, but sometimes you have that little twitch in your mind when you see somebody or you hear something, you're like, and so I don't have that anymore, which is great, right? I am evolved. Woo! Look at me. So, in this one instance with this one person, and that's not to say it won't come back, but we're going to work on not having it come back. Usually when I tell you guys about something in church, that kind of cements the deal, which is pretty great. So, if you want to know how to really cement something that come up here and tell a bunch of other people, and that really, really helps do the trick. So, back to what my friend Reverend William said, in compassion, there's no separation. And compassion rises out of intimacy. I still have not had barely any conversations with this person, but I feel connected to him now because I realize what we have in common. See, belief that we are separate from God and from each other is the biggest mistake, the biggest mass delusion that we can have. If we truly knew that we had the spark of divine and that everybody else had the spark of the divine, could we be ruffled by bumper stickers? Would we be ruffled by someone else's religious ideologies? or that someone has a different opinion at us, or that they're doing something that annoys us. I know that's a very high bar. I'm just saying, like, we know you might as well aim high, right? Aim high. And I don't expect you all to get it perfect right away. Just saying that's aiming high. So if we were connected to each other through understanding and compassion, we couldn't get to the level of thinking that anyone's life was worth taking or should be. I know that there's been some things that's been going on in the world, and maybe you have had a moment where you're like, you know, it would be a lot easier if that person just went away. But they're worth living too. This is like serious spiritual warrior stuff. I know you're up for the challenge. I mean, to get biblical, the 10 Commandments says, thou shalt not kill. And Jesus said, be nice to your neighbors. Right? It's kind of pretty I mean, there's no gray area there. It's all pretty clear and straightforward. The out-picturing is sometimes a little bit more difficult, but this is how we embrace the other. We see that they may be different than us. Everybody's different than us. Even if you had a twin, they would be different than you. Can we truly embrace that in everyone? That doesn't mean we have to be okay with their choices. It doesn't mean we have to welcome them into our home or, you know, think that their opinions are wonderful. But we can still know that they're divine. Have that divine spark. Hardcore stuff, right? So I hold in high regard someone who I have many differences. As many of you know, because I've told you, until I went to Europe last month, I had been in less than 5 Catholic churches in my whole life. The number is probably 2, but I might have forgotten one. I'm not really in alignment with a lot of what the Catholics have to say about things. It's okay. I don't care. They can do their thing. Theologically, we don't get along. I mean, I am here as a lady minister, so there's that, right? There's some other things. However, I was really excited to see the Pope, as you all know, because you've heard me talk about it. And I don't know if I would have felt this excitement about the Pope if it had just been any Pope. This Pope is extra special. Because he has that focus on service, and he's speaking up for the disenfranchised and the people at the bottom. And because he knows, he understands, and he has such a humbleness of, you know, he flew economy class when he was going to the, whatever it is called when they decide who the Pope is, you know, when he was a cardinal and he was fun. He flew economy class, you know? Not a lot of the other cardinals were doing it that way. So he has a place in my heart. And one of the things I appreciate about him is about how much he teaches compassion and acting in Christ-like ways. And he doesn't teach this by talking about it. He teaches it by doing it. He's become known for many things, but one of them is by whose feet he washes on the traditional Maundy Thursday foot washing. In 2005, he washed and kissed the feet of elderly and disabled folks with various backgrounds from other faith traditions in a care home. And in 2016, he was at a refugee camp, which once again, of course, had a variety of faith backgrounds, and of course, on all of them, he included women. And this is what he said at the refugee camp. He said, all of us together, Muslims, Hindus, Catholics, Copts, evangelicals, but all brothers and children of the same God. And then this year, he was at a prison. And he washed the feet of the prisoners. And he said, if you can do something, a service for your companions in prison, do it. This is love. This is like washing feet, to be the servant to others. So I was pretty excited to see him, and it was really great. And even though I don't agree with him on many things, I'm impressed because he's taking seriously his job as a world spiritual leader. He's a master level compassion person. He's got master level, or whatever the highest level is, he's got that down. But not only the act, but understanding that as Pope, he's making such a bigger impact. And also, my guess is that when he was washing those feet, he was just a man washing the foot of the person in front of him, seeing the Christ in that person. Wow. So, to me, this is the antidote. This is the antidote to the disconnection and the angst and all the painful things that are happening in the world, that we see in the news, and the continued disconnect that's happening. First, embrace the other. In parentheses, realizing that's you and your fellow earthlings. Second, embrace the divine. In parentheses, realizing that's you and your fellow earthlings. Embrace the other, embrace the divine.